Hello, everyone. I just wanted to let you know that we're going to get started in a few minutes. In about maybe 1 or 2 minutes, we're going to get started. Just waiting for everyone to log in. Welcome to today's presentation. All right. Okay, so everything looks like it's great. I'm sure everyone can hear me. So, hi everyone, welcome to this week's COVID-19 Housing Provider Sharing and Problem Solving session. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Torlin Winbush from All Chicago, and I have my colleagues Bridget Doviet and Jennifer Fabrini supporting us for today's topics. I want to go over a couple of housekeeping rules real quickly, just briefly. So everyone is on mute, and in order to unmute yourself, you have to do *6 on your phone. If you're having difficulty hearing us, please join the webinar via phone and click on the audio, then click on the telephone, and please follow the dial-in instructions. For things like questions, we're encouraging you to make sure that you put the questions inside the chat area, the question/chat area throughout the presentation, and then we will support you throughout today's discussion. So if you have a question as the presenters are presenting information in their specific area, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, and then we'll try to be able to assist you with that. All lines are muted. Use, like I said, the questions or the chat box to submit your questions, your ideas, your comments throughout today's presentation, as well as resources. So thank you for joining us. So a little bit about our goals: dedicated time for housing providers, sharing questions, strategies, resources, working towards solutions and common understanding. So All Chicago will continue to explore additional topics until May 28th at this time. So please remember to join us, and you can use the same login information. So as the COVID-19 crisis continues, we're going to continue to build and explore on these topics over the period of time. So today's topics, we have case manager supporting staff, and then we have a presentation on anxiety, some fintech tools, and then we have wrap up and next topics. So today's peer guest presenters is Laura Bass, Director of Programs at Facing Forward to End Homelessness, and Angelica De Hosa, Team Supervisor and Case Manager at Casa Central. And then we have Mallory Price, Licensed Clinical Social Worker, Private Practice. And then we have Andrea Serrano, who is Asset Building, Training, and Community Service Coordinator with Heartland Alliance. So as we begin today's discussion, we're going to start off with our peer questions for today are, how are you helping your staff? So it's asked our presenters. So we're going to have Laura and we're going to have Angelica kind of join us in the discussion today. So I would like for them to so they can present themselves, can introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Laura Bass, and I am Director of Programs with Facing Forward to End Homelessness.
And I'm Angelica Dichosa, Team Supervisor at Casa Central Posada. I've been there about 6 years now.
Okay.
And I think we're both gonna, oh, thanks.
No, go ahead, please.
So I think Angelica and I are both gonna share our perspective on these questions. So for the first question, in terms of helping staff during COVID-19, so for Facing Forward, we have staff in a variety of roles. Most of them are able to work remotely, which is great, and also I recognize it's not everybody's situation. But one of the things we're hearing from staff is that some folks are just feeling like really isolated, not kind of being in the office and not seeing their coworkers. So a couple things that we've done. One is our program managers have just been checking in with staff more frequently. So in addition to formal supervision, which is now happening remotely, just checking in to kind of see how folks are doing and see what type of support that they need. We have also done one training for our case managers, so kind of based on some of the ideas that have been shared here, as well as the org code webinar. I put together a training on some best practices for working remotely, and did that training for staff via Zoom, as well as kind of inviting some discussion for staff to share with each other, for case managers to share what was working for them in terms of working remotely. And then the last thing I would say is just recognizing that, like, it's not business as usual. So just being really open with people that our expectations are modified during this time. So some of the things that we typically expect staff to do, we're right now asking them to not do. So just letting people know we understand it's going to be more challenging to accomplish some of their typical tasks. And I actually put together like a kind of a cheat sheet, just emphasizing what we're asking people to do for their own safety and staff safety, as well as just some being clear about how those expectations are modified during COVID-19. So that because we found that people were having some anxiety, like, well, I'm not doing home visits, and is it going to be a problem at some point in the future? So being really clear that right now we're actually asking you not to do home visits, and use other resources to support your clients.
Piggybacking off of Laura, I think that, I mean, the most important thing to take out of this is that, yes, our clients are very stressed about the situation, but I think, you know, everybody can agree that staff is really at high anxiety, and, you know, small things like just checking in, like saying, hey, how are you, is just really important right now. I know that I really try to touch bases with my staff on a daily basis, if not every other day, and then have like a formal meeting, video chat once a week. That one is a definite, but checking in and asking how everyone really is very important at this point. It may seem very simple, but it is really important, and I know, as some of you guys may be supervisors, and you know, you're worried about your staff, and you forget about yourself as well. So I think this is a very high stress situation for everyone, and it's just important to be very understanding, because everybody's anxiety level is different. Some could be low, some could be high, but I think it's just we need to be kind to one another and be considerate of everybody during this time.
And I think I would just add to that, along with what Angelica is saying, that just recognizing that everyone's circumstances are different. Like she said, some people might be having higher anxiety. Also recognizing that, you know, some of our staff now have kids that are not in school. And so they're trying to manage multiple things, it's not just about the job. And so just seeing where there's flexibility. So when we, you know, letting folks know, like, if you're having technical difficulties, if you're not able to log into this virtual meeting, that this is a bad time for you because of maybe what's going on with your kids' remote learning, like, just let us know, and letting people know that there is that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we have to help each other out in this moment, in this really sensitive moment. I think everybody is having some, whether it's like Laura said, whether it's like working remotely or like having children. I think everybody definitely does have a different circumstance. Some people are able to deal with anxiety better than others, and you know, it's just important that we have each other's back and support from one another. And as far as like, and really just caring about staff in general, like I know, for example, Casa, I know not other shelters are as fortunate as we are, but you know, we are able to, most of us are working remotely, and then having to come to the office, you know, once a week, rotating, and just keeping each other safe. being looking out for one another.
So it sounds like everyone is being, the two of you are being very intentional with your teams, trying to make sure that you're assessing whatever those challenges, and just if something comes up, just communicate, right?
Absolutely.
What,
Absolutely. I mean, it
so
sounds
what
so
type,
simple. It sounds so
yeah,
simple, but it's very important.
yeah, absolutely. What type of technology are you using to communicate with your teams?
We are using Office 365. I know that my agency has really gotten really big on Office 365, and we were trying to get everything. It's like we were almost preparing, almost that we were trying to get all of our information in like almost in the cloud, where versus like everybody working within the office. But we're being very I I I think we were prepared, not for this situation. Well, we didn't expect to be prepared for the situation, but we did. We're using Teams, we're using Outlook, we're using a cloud. So it's been very interesting working from home, but I think everybody has gotten the hang of it. Even those who would say that they're less tech savvy, I think they've gotten a hang of it, and that's really nice that everybody is kind of able to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and facing forward, we've also been using Teams. We've been using the chat function a lot, which I honestly I knew that it existed, but I never used it prior to the situation. And then for virtual meetings, so far we've been using Zoom, and I think that's worked pretty well. It's also kind of has that self-care component because then people are experimenting with like the different functions and the backgrounds. Um, I had signed up for a free WebEx account, but there was like a wait list. So my hope is to try that at some point too. But so far Zoom has been working pretty well.
I think we switched from well, at least my team, we switched from Zoom to back on Teams, and I think it's just worked very well. With like where we check in every day. It doesn't necessarily have to be a supervisor. We kind of just like all naturally at at the time we clock in, we're saying good morning, good morning. How's everybody? So it's a really nice wake up. It's nice to wake up to.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're saying that you do a wake up call or a check in at a specific time in the morning?
Yeah, right when we
That's
clock in,
awesome.
we're all like, good morning, how's everybody? How's everybody doing? Any updates about the program in general? Like, I would have to say that because there is one supervisor, one caseworker at the office at all times, I think that we've had to be more intentional on like getting in contact with one another. I would have to say that we're in contact almost every single day by this chat. So it's nice.
Okay.
And then we kind of got off our meeting schedule, honestly, the first few weeks of this shutdown because we didn't really know how long we would be out of the office. And then we made the decision that we wanted to get back to our regular meeting schedule, even though the content of the meetings is a little different. But that was something that people seemed to find valuable, to have the opportunity to see each other and talk to each other.
Okay.
I think in the rotation that we set up for people to be in the office was like intentional, so each of us could have also a moment to see at least each caseworker or each supervisor. So I think that's how I look forward to every time I have to go into the office. So it's nice, but also being somewhat like cautious for everybody's health.
Okay. That's awesome. So what are some self-care opportunities you're doing with your teams that you're willing to share? We spoke about it earlier. So what are some of the things that you could think, or you want to implement, or you're thinking about implementing?
So knowing that everybody's circumstance is like very different, maybe people not having the funds to do so, but if I check in with the person that I'm going to be set up in the office with that day, I'll ask them, hey, did you bring breakfast? Let me bring breakfast for us, and we'll switch off let's say lunch or whatever it is. I know everybody's circumstance is different, but it's something that I like to do, you know, not often, but or whatever I'm capable of doing at that point. I know that like one of our coworkers had a birthday that just passed, and you know, since we're all really missing each other, we decided to make it either a video individually or as a department, you know, wishing that person a happy birthday. So that was really, really fun to make. And it was something to look forward to.
Okay.
And I would say this is an area where I feel like I would like to do more. So I feel like a lot of what we've done so far has been kind of what we've talked about, which is just creating opportunities for staff to check in with each other. And you know, kind of people kind of do, you know, they have a chance for that small talk and kind of the more personal aspect. Excuse me. I think on one of these calls, another agency talking about doing a digital scavenger hunt. So that is something I would
Oh,
really like to
that's
explore.
interesting. I wanna know more about that.
So my thought was to have something, maybe we could use Teams where people have different challenges of like pictures they could take, and post, you know, something they could do while they're working remotely. You know, some of our staff are still going out in the field occasionally. But maybe just something that's a little competitive and more lighthearted.
Okay.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah.
I might steal that from you.
I stole it from someone else. I think I stole it from Heartland. So
Well, thank you both for sharing. I mean, these are some really, really great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think we have, oh, okay. So Diana said at Heartland, we did a scavenger hunt. So I think that's where you got it from, Laura. So
yep.
Diana Moore shared that. I don't see any additional questions coming from anyone. And if you have any questions, please type them in the questions area or in the chat, and we'd be happy to share it with our presenters. One of the questions is, has anyone had problems with the security issues in Zoom?
So this is Laura. I have not. I know that I use it for my second job too. So I got some training on how to use some of the functions to address some of the like Zoom bombing and stuff like that.
Right.
So setting a password, disabling the join before host, using the waiting room, and some of those things.
I've
Okay.
only heard about security issues. I don't think I've actually experienced any security issues when it comes to Zoom, but I did switch to Teams just because I had a better hold of like how for me, I'm not that tech savvy. So when we're doing Zoom, I'm notorious for like giving the wrong meeting address and like trying to figure out. So I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna do Zoom anymore. It's too complicated for me. I'm gonna go back to Teams. But that wasn't but like security issues wasn't the reason why I got off Zoom.
Okay. So assessing it, you figure out what was better for your team, ultimately going from one to the other. So that's being very intentional and purposeful. Yeah, that's great. All right. Those were our questions. So thank you both very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you so very, very much. We're going to transition a little bit. We have a couple of polls today. Everyone, if you had a question, please, put your comments inside the chat. So one of our polling questions is going to help us help us to transition, into our next segment. And the question is, how are you dealing with staffing and people? Laura and Ashley Angelica basically inspired this. People coming into our work are people who may not be coming into work. And so as we're looking at it, some of the options are routine and structure, predictability, having control over the things that we are able to control, connection to others, feeling in sync with others, regular debriefing and clinical supervision. And if you have an additional comment outside of it, put it inside the chat area so that we can look at that information. So one of the really great things that I would encourage, so the poll is open. So let's go ahead and go with the poll and see what we get. So Jennifer's going to help us with that. Okay. Collective responses. Oh, wow. Okay. Go another minute there. Okay. So right now it's saying 66 or 67 are having regular debriefing and clinical supervision. We have routine and structure. Okay. 40% connection to others, feeling in sync. Okay. So the overwhelming favorite we're at 57%. So if we can get up a little bit, if we can go a little higher, it'd be great. All right. So I think that's yep. So we're going to close the poll. It's roughly at 63%. That's outstanding. That says regular debriefings and clinical supervision. And then runner up was routine and structure. So we have a question. Can you explain a question? Are we talking about people who must be on site or people who are not showing up? Well, we're talking about a little bit of both. So we're talking about if you're in that particular scenario, if you have people that are not showing up, or if you have people that are, it was just one of those types of questions that we were thinking about. What are you dealing with within your environment? So that's a very good question. Thank you for posing that. But it's a little bit of both. Okay, so we have another poll. So the focus, I'm sorry, is it creating a genuine sense of safety and community for staff? That's ultimately what these wonderful things add up to. And then we're going to go to our other poll, which basically is asking us, is dealing with uncertainty. And are members of our team, of your team, getting the resources that they need? How are you and your organization dealing with uncertainty due to COVID-19? Giving people a regular forum to discuss how we can improve together, having control over the things that we are able to control, being honest and explaining steps and reasoning, encouraging and making time for self-care, having a plan in place for ask of the community. And then if you have additional comments, put it in the chat. So about 71% says being honest and explaining steps and reasoning. Okay, that's 72%. So that's the overwhelming favorite. Mallory, are you there? Did you
Yep.
want?
Sure.
So we have Mallory Price, and she was looking at this information, and so I was sharing the polling information. So Mallory, would you like for us to transition? You're going to talk a little bit about, so the end result is, oh wow, 70% being honest and explaining steps and reasoning. 55% was encouraging and making time for self-care. And then you had 40% giving people a regular forum to discuss it and having a plan in place for ask of the community. So yeah. So thank you. All right. So I'm gonna let Mallory Price talk to us a little bit about the anxiety equation.
Hi everybody. So the anxiety equation actually comes out of cognitive behavioral therapy, and the purpose of it is to kind of hopefully create some distance between the threat of danger and oh wait, one moment, sorry. Torlin, do you have the equation up?
I have the equation up, Mallory.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so it's really trying to help people because help people with managing kind of their anxiety, because the anxiety is very real. This is a serious threat. but we want to make sure that we're helping people identify that while there is this serious situation going on, we want them to focus on what are their coping skills and the prevention steps that we've been able to take. And so really looking at all of like sitting there and listing out with your staff kind of all of the coping skills that they have and the prevention steps that they've taken thus far. So if they are on site, are they wearing masks? Are they keeping distance from people? Are they washing their hands? Do they have the opportunity to go to the bathroom and wash their hands frequently during the day? And really focusing on what are the things that we can prevent to decrease our risk. And you can even kind of make this into an equation, like writing it out with the staff. So on the top, we would have where estimation of danger and risk is. It would be like contracting COVID-19. And for the estimation of coping skills and prevention steps, you're going to go down the line and list out everything that you can think of with your staff to like show what are we actually doing to kind of like prevent the spread in maybe one of our facilities, or keeping our staff safe for staff who are home, making sure that you're emphasizing that this is a really good step, that we can have people work from home right now so that they're not exposed on a day-to-day basis. But for the people who are on site, focusing on just making sure that they are keeping in mind those preventative measures. And then also the prevention steps kind of dive into giving people a little bit of a sense of control, having kind of a forum for people to give feedback on quality improvement on a regular basis is going to be super important, so that people feel like they can actually have an impact on the situation. When we can't necessarily control the virus, we can stay at home, of course, but we can't, there is not things, we are not medical professionals that we can like prevent the spread or take care of each other in those ways, but what are we doing as a community to prevent and keep each other safe? So focusing on those things and giving people a forum to give suggestions, especially frontline staff that are in the shelters, just being able to say, hey, I noticed that we're doing this way, but I think that a way that we could really improve or prevent the spread of something is from doing it X way, and allowing people to feel like they have ownership in the programs. I think also when we're thinking about trauma, it's something people experience trauma when there are unpredictable circumstances out of their control, and so the more that we can kind of put those prevention steps and focus on how we're coping with like providing that regular supervision, and also just doing regular check-ins throughout the day with staff, that can be a really important thing. So being able to like have those kinds of controls in place are going to reduce anxiety and hopefully the overall impact of this traumatic event. Does anybody have any questions about kind of how the equation works? Someone said at All Chicago, they've been doing icebreakers in the morning on for the teams.
Right.
So yeah, so we talked about that. And like that is when you're thinking about if like the danger or risk is isolation of staff, for those of those of you who are working at home, really making sure that you're doing like even digital lunches, or being able to kind of create a forum for people to ask questions on a regular basis. Those are all important and useful skills that tools that you can put in place to kind of support your team during this time.
Okay. So if I were to ask you about the anxiety equation and about the different areas, about the estimation of danger, and you shared a lot of best practices, how are you seeing, I'm sure you shared this with people that's in the community, correct? People that you come across and that's experiencing trauma and stress as it relates to COVID-19. How do you find the responses to exploring this type of equation?
I think so far, a lot of people that I've talked to, it has been helpful because if you're quantifying it, so that the risk, you can say like the risk of contracting COVID is 1. But then when you look at all of the prevention steps and you add those up, that might add up to 20. And so you're kind of looking at an equation where you're showing that you have done all of these steps to really decrease the percentage and the risk of you contracting COVID. Also, just really having having something that is like a physical like black and white laid out kind of equation here, instead of just trying to like calm people's anxiety, which is real, but trying to like calm people's anxiety by saying we're in this together. Actually giving them those concrete steps that are happening and reminding them of those is very helpful. To have them kind of look back on and remember when their anxiety does seem to be escalating at times.
Okay, so someone that's attending today shared that where they're at Heartland, we're doing a weekly self-care check-in on Microsoft Teams. This is where staff can talk about anything. They can sing, they can show their pets, they can talk about their children, especially talking about how they are coping with it. So that sounds like a very great self-care practice. So I want to thank Diana for sharing that with us today. So that's a great example. I think that you say how to minimize, right, the danger or the risk, or help with doing things or activities like that. That definitely helps, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I heard so many wonderful things from Laura and Angelica that you already are doing in the situation, and I think that something that was on the one poll was about asks from the community. So while we always will have limited resources, something that you can put in place is kind of working with your development teams to identify when staff do need something, especially during this time. How are they going to go about trying to get those resources for people and to support the frontline staff and clients, and explaining that to staff that like there is a plan in place, and when you ask for things, we are going to try our best to get those for you. That can also be really reassuring because that is a preventative measure that you're putting in place as an organization, to really respond to the needs of not only the clients, but also the staff.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mallory. Really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing this equation. And I think it's going to be a great motivator as we continue to get through the crisis and dealing with the COVID-19. So thank you.
Yep, thanks.
I don't see any other questions for you at this point. So I'm going to transition, and then we're going to chat with Andreas Serrano, if he can join us. Andreas, are you there?
Hi, everyone. Okay, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Torlin?
We can. I can hear you just fine. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Torlin reached out to me because it seems that people really want to know what kind of resources are out there for individuals to support them during this time in relation to financial technology. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that kind of stuff. Right now, everyone is, the people who know that are going to receive checks are looking forward to that information. There's a lot of, it's just kind of been day by day, like you're getting a check. We don't really know when. You might automatically get it. You might not automatically get it. If you file taxes, if you didn't file taxes. So there's been a lot of uncertainty. And so really, I think the best way we can support our people is to kind of let them know as soon as that information comes out, hey, this is what I just found out. Like, this is going to affect you or this is not going to affect you. You don't have to worry about this. So really helping people navigate all that information that just kind of comes up day by day. And then how can we leverage technology in this time to make sure that our people get, their money in a timely manner? And then how can we think about our different specific populations and the products that they either use or don't use so that we can, best direct them in that direction. So financial technology, I do want to talk about a few things. There are traditional banking kind of offers for those individuals that are accessible through apps. So as you think about the way that people receive their money, not everyone feels comfortable, going to a bank. So you do have to think about that. A lot of people have issues with check systems, which is basically, the system that says, hey, you've had issues with a bank in the past, and so you might not be able to access a traditional banking account. However, through Bank On, which is, just kind of like a national effort in bigger cities where nonprofits are working with banks and are also working with the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund to kind of make sure that there are safe and affordable products available for individuals who might be experiencing those challenges. And so really helping someone understand, like, although you might not qualify for a traditional banking product that may be like Chase, US Bank, or Bank of America, or maybe any other kind of national chain that they might see in their communities, informing them that these accounts do exist and you should, I would encourage everyone to check out the Bank On site because every bank has a different account and you do have to do a little bit of research. Just to give you an example, the Chase Secure Checking is it's basically like a prepaid card by Chase. But what it does, it doesn't have any overdraft fees. There's no opening deposit, which is different than having a traditional $25 to open. So that doesn't leave people out if they don't have the initial $25 opening balance, the deposit. It does have budgeting apps and it has Credit Journey, which is good for those individuals who want to, monitor their credit during this time. And it is $4.95 a month, which is a lot more manageable than the $12 a month to have a traditional bank account. And so the one at US Bank is called Bank Safe Debit, and Bank of America has one as well. So helping your participants explore those. One thing that I see a lot with other communities, such as like youth, is that youth want to use technology that is easy, that is fast. Things, you have to think about where things are being advertised. If you see yourself scrolling through like Instagram or you see yourself on Snapchat or any kind of those apps, you start seeing things like Chime, you see ads for earning. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. There are banks that exist only online that you don't have to go into right now you can't really go into banks depending on what their hours are, but there are banks that only exist online that you can just open and they're really quick and easy. You do need to have some sort of documentation, meaning that you need to have like an ID, maybe a license. So assisting your participants in getting that kind of information. You can research more online savings accounts via NerdWallet, and NerdWallet now has an app that you can download in the web store. This is great for education. It's something that we do with participants regularly. Other things that people right now are experiencing is maybe a little bit of uncertainty in their cash flow. whether it's to reduce by reduced hours or possibly unemployment or yeah, any other kind of challenge in regards to receiving your money. One thing that you can do is that Chime actually has a built-in thing so that if you do have something that's going to be deposited in there, such as maybe like a stimulus check, you can have early access to it. There are other apps such as Dave and Earnin. So Earnin, what it does is it looks at the hours that you've already worked. So if you work something, it kind of does what Uber and Lyft, where they can pay you by day. So if you've already worked, you can access those funds, and you can access up to 500 in one paycheck. And it does this by tracking basically your geolocation. So again, you do need to talk to people about how comfortable you feel sharing your information, and how to navigate these products to make sure that you don't get caught up. But these are options for individuals that could really help them in a tight position right now. And Dave kind of does the same thing. Dave is a newer app, but the thing I like about Dave is that you can either connect it to an existing bank account, and it basically was created to help with overdraft fees, meaning that they can give you up to $100 without charging you an actual fee. It's like a 0% interest pay advance. And it also has like a budgeting option within it. You can even choose to open your own bank account with them. And this one only costs $1 a month. So I would encourage you to also look at that one just as you're exploring options with your participants. And during this time, we want to make sure that people are thinking about how to manage this money, right? We're getting a big chunk of money. We don't want people to go out and spend it frivolously or, depending. We want people to think ahead because we don't really know how long this is going to happen or how long this is going to be going on for. So we want to help connect that money to people's specific goals. And so some budgeting apps that could be really helpful for this is Good Budget. Good Budget is like similar to like an envelope budgeting app, and you can help people think, how much am I going to need for food? How much am I going to need for bills? And try to think ahead at least a month or two. Right now, a lot of people might be receiving a little bit of extra money in their SNAP benefits. So Fresh EBT is an app that was created by a nonprofit, and it allows you to check your SNAP benefits, your balance. It helps you manage your spending. It actually helps you find stores where they take it. And this is just a really good way to help individuals think about how to make the SNAP benefits last longer, especially now that they're getting a little bit extra. As I was doing some research, I would encourage you all to log on to look up Expensify. So Expensify is giving people a small SNAP reimbursement if you can provide receipts that say that you use like your SNAP benefits. I believe they'll give you up to like $50. And so again, during this time, a lot of people are like stepping up and trying to see how they can help. So I would encourage you to regularly look up things that might provide additional resources for your participants. Torlin, you want to go to the next line? So yeah, just some, I know Torlin asked me to speak about individuals where we might work with different types of communities and people who are, affected by different things. And so I think with youth, what you really want to encourage is thinking about, for you all as case managers and as people supporting youth, I want you to think about what existing apps are they using already that you can have new services added to them. For example, PayPal has been around forever, but I don't know if everyone is aware, but PayPal now has a cash card that you can obtain, and it's basically like a debit card, and so you can use those funds, and it's like a bank, and so you can get direct deposit on it, you can pay other people with it, but now you can also have your card that you can, manage and pay things online and even use as an ATM. There are fees associated with it, but it's an existing product that might not be as intimidating as a traditional bank, and 2 is familiar. The Cash App, which began as a peer-to-peer app, meaning like a Venmo or like a Zelle, which is part of a lot of traditional banks where you can send money from one person to another. Cash App now has a card as well, and you can. They're allowing you now to have a routing number so that you can get your COVID funds directly put into your cash account. And if you wanted to apply for the card as well, you can. And so again, finding products that people are already using and then seeing how they're adapting during this time. And I would also encourage you all to like check out the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, to see what student loan options are out, what options are out there, especially if someone is in school and is paying student loans. Again, encouraging individuals to think about, hey, I can, like during this time, maybe I don't have to pay, but I need to pay attention for how long so it doesn't affect me. For individuals with disabilities, again, so these, this community, unfortunately, this population is, even more vulnerable during this time. And so getting the correct information out to these individuals is very, very important. So how do you make that information as accessible as possible? So JAWS and Zoom Text, which are some accessibility, that's some accessibility software available online, is actually free of charge for personal computers until the end of June. So if you go to freedomscientific.com, the creator of both of those apps, JAWS, which is basically it's a verbal transcribing app, and Zoom Text, which allows individuals with visual impairments to see better. Both of those softwares are free until the end of June. So I would encourage you all to go on there and check that out. How do you support your veterans? Even the VA is moving towards virtual meetings, which is something that we're doing as well as case managers. But again, supporting those individuals or maybe figuring out how we can get those individuals to have access to even be able to go to these virtual meetings. But just knowing that there are opportunities for individuals to continue meeting with their people, and I think for you all, creating those opportunities as well. To see your people regularly and continue to support them throughout this time. And I think one last thing that I want to point out is how to leverage the FTC and the CFPB, because right now there is a lot of financial scams, especially because people are getting their money. There's a lot of uncertainty and new information kind of coming up day by day, and you really want to make sure that you are up to date and that your individuals are up to date as to what are some of the financial scams that are out there and how to protect yourself. And I got a question about the website for JAWS. So I'm going to go ahead and say that again. It's called freedomscientific.com. freedomscientific.com. And you can obtain a free home license for JAWS and Zoom Text.
So thank you very much, Andreas. I want to request if we can possibly get some of the great things that you shared. I see that you put it inside, so that's great. We have the actual website. So if there's any other additional resources that you think will be very helpful during this time, specifically with everyone getting these resources, please feel free to send that information to me so I can share it with all the members on this presentation today. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And I know that you and I are doing a webinar on financial technology and just kind of how to leverage that kind of stuff. So we can also send that information as well.
Right, so that's taking place on May 7th, and we're going to do it in the webinar. So yes, we have that coming up. So we're going to get additional resources to help. I did want to share a resource from Rosemary, who shared that the USAA Federal Banking Savings Bank is a great online bank for veterans and service members. And for those who serve vets, it's very easy to open an account and it is free of charge. So thanks, Rosemary. Thanks for sharing that. So I transition a little bit and then kind of go into the next step. So if there's not any other questions, I don't see any other questions from the attendees.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Andreas. So I wanted to thank Andreas, Angelica. I wanted to thank Laura, and I want to thank Mallory for their presentations on today. But we have, so thank you very much for joining us. I wanted to also share that we are, I would like to do a peer call on project-based PSH. Just trying to find who would be interested in supporting a conference call for services for project-based PSH. And so it'll take place Thursday, which is next Thursday, 10 to 11 a.m. So I'll send you a communication via Teams. Kim Davison has graciously, she's gonna be on the call with me. So I just wanted to share this and see if I can get some of you who would be interested in supporting a conference call specifically to talk about services for project-based PSH. And so if you can email me, that'd be great. And then we'll have some additional information for you as you email me. So I see that there's a potential question. I see that there's a question. So the recording for the course is going to be available through the All Chicago. It's the same course that you actually logged into last week. So what we do each week, we add all of the recording information as well as any resources that was shared during the time of the presentation. So you'll have a pretty lengthy communication of everything that has happened through the peers. So it'll continue to, so there's a lot of resources. As a matter of fact, Kim has a wellness plan that I'm actually going to upload and place from last week's presentation so that you could take a look at it and if you'd like to implement it. So future topics and next session. I just basically want to do a call to everyone that's here and say, do you have a topic idea for the next week's session? And if you do, please place it inside the chat. If you don't place it inside the chat, you can email it to me at my email address. And we will have our next session next Thursday, April the 23rd from 2:30 to 3:30. It's the same link as this week. And like I said earlier in the presentation, is that we plan to continue to have this call every Thursday during this time up until May the 28th on different topics as it relates through, as we continue to build on our discussion and how the COVID crisis, COVID-19 is the crisis in our community. So we're going to continue to build on those topics. So if you'd like to facilitate a future session or to help plan, please feel free to email me as well. I would love to hear from you. So I don't see any more questions. Oh, I think we have maybe one more. Okay. So one of the questions is, how will the new economy after COVID-19 is going to affect those? Okay, so that's the topic. Okay, gotcha. So thank you for that. So Ricardo, thank you for that. We'll definitely investigate that and explore that opportunity. Thank you so much. And so as you, like I said, have a good rest of your day. Thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to chatting with you next week and exploring next week's topic. So if you have any additional information that you want to place inside the chat, I will be keeping it up until about 3:30. So if you want to add additional information, please feel free to do so. Thank you so much.